This webinar is in reference to custom tables in the ACT database. Our custom tables is a module, one of the 10 modules that we have in the Impact Suite. This Impact Suite is installed. We're currently running ACT Beta 2014. ACT is not calling it 2014 anymore. They're just calling it version 16. So this is ACT v16 with Impact Suite installed. Our Impact Suite does work with version ACT 2010 or better. Okay. All right, so what we're seeing here is the contact detail view. And of course, the big change you're seeing is on the left-hand side is our enhanced navigation bar. The enhanced navigation bar can be turned on and off, but it's really, really useful when you're looking at custom tables. Okay, so let's drill into a custom table here. What is a custom table? A custom table is a secondary table, a child table, one-to-many table, and basically this table will store information that is related to a specific contact. So think of it like the activities table, for instance. You can have an activity or 10 activities attached to a single contact, but then you can also go to your activity list and you can see hundreds of activities that are in your entire database. A custom table works the same. Here we have a custom table underneath Chris Hoffman. We have a tab here called Autos. So this is my automobile custom table, and it's holding 2 records attached to Chris Hoffman. I have other custom tables in here like service calls. So again, I have 5 service calls attached to Chris Hoffman. So how do you get a custom table into the ACT database? What you do once you install Impact Suite is if you go to the Tools menu, you come right down here to the bottom, Impact Suite. And in Impact Suite, this is our About screen. What you're going to see is tabs on the left-hand side, and if you go to your Tables tab, you're going to see all the custom tables that are currently installed in the database. Inside of here, we have, of course, autos, equipment, service calls, stickies, and a time build table. The first time that you come in here, of course, this list will be blank. So what you can do is create a table from scratch, or you can use one of our templates to build a table. If I just come down here 2 notches, I have templates. These are templates for custom tables. So if I was to just scroll down this list and look at these, I can see just by name, this is a custom table called Equipment with Activities. We have a simple preview here, and you can click on the Enlarge Preview button. That's just a screenshot of BMP. It hasn't done any changes to your database yet. This is showing you what it's going to install. So it's going to install Equipment Table with this data entry screen with the ability to schedule activities against that equipment table. If we look at other ones, let's just go down to pledges and payments, services. So here's a service table, and I can see we have employee name, service number, again, some predefined fields. Any one of these templates is a great starting off point. It's a jumping off point. You can add, modify, remove any field you need. You can add math formulas. You can do a lot of things to it. So let's go in a little bit further here. We have templates installed. And again, we have the custom tables. On this setting, on this custom tables, this is telling us that is currently turned on the contact tab. So we see automobiles here, and you see auto tab down here. That's because this is on. If I was to turn this off, it would not be displayed on that tab. The reason being, you may have a custom table called equipment. Equipment may only be required to be attached to the opportunity table. You know, opportunities, you're tracking equipment. So in those cases, you could turn them off visually so that it doesn't appear under contacts, companies, and groups. And that's what these selectors do here. Turns on and off interface elements. Once you have a custom table installed, you can manage it a couple of different ways. when we're in the designer, which I'll show you, it will allow you to add the fields. But you can also add the fields or manage the tables right from here. We have a Manage Table button here on the lower right. And this brings forward something that's a little more ACT style. If you go to Customize Fields in ACT, you're going to see the same type of layout. And we have our custom tables here. So if I wanted to go to my equipment table, I can see all the fields that are in the equipment table. And of course, I can just create a field here, add a field name in. If I need to modify a field, of course, I can highlight it and I can edit it. So you can manage all the information in your custom table. So let's close down that, and we'll close down our About window. So we're back right where we were on the Automobile table. Now, in the Automobile table tab here, we have elements, buttons, functions, and things that we can do to this. Of course, we have the new modify, edit the record, create a new record. We also have word merging capabilities, so you can take information from your custom table and insert it into a Word document. We can import and export these custom tables. We can, of course, just print this list. On here, we have a drop-down, which is different column layouts. You know the way ACT has this drop-down here, which will change this whole data entry up at the top. Well, we have a column set, so I can change this to a completely different set of columns by using this drop-down and going back and forth. So as you can see, I can come back and forth and change these layouts. Okay, if we go to our columns right now, this column button that we just selected here, columns here, I went through kind of quick, brings forward the About window or the configuration window for this custom table. Here's my column selectors, so I can see which columns. If I need to add the odometer field, I can just click Add, and that odometer field is there. If I need to move it up or down, I can do that very simply here. On that column set, that drop down I was just talking about, this is where you can come in and change it. So if I want to go to my web layout is called that because that is the custom table web interface. So when you're on ACT for Web and you're looking at columns, these are the columns that are exposed on the web side of life. Okay, so I can change these. All right, chart. Let's just go down our options here. Chart, we have the ability to show the charts. Pivot tables, we have the ability to show the pivot tables. Color rules. Everybody, if you've noticed from version 2 to version 5, we have a very robust way to create color rules in the system. That's color rules. Style. Our style area is just the grid lines and scroll bars and auto size events and things like that. It's just the visual style of the grid. Data is our last one. Data is our data entry forms. With version 5, you're able to change your data entry forms on the fly. You can have multiple data entry forms. We found it really powerful for companies that are doing different employees or different parts of the process. You may have one employee doing order entry, and he needs to see these 10 fields. And then you have another user that's doing fulfillment, and he needs to see 20 different fields. So instead of cluttering up the one screen with 30 fields, you can actually have a user-specific data entry form. And that's what these are. These are user-specific data entry forms. So if I wanted to go and look at this data entry form, I can just click here, hit Modify, and here is the data entry form. Now, our data entry form designer is rather robust. It's a free form tool where you can grab items and move anything around that you want. What's nice about it, we have a lot of snapping things happening on, like snap to grid. Like I want to add the price into here. If I just hold my mouse down and drag that on, you see that blue line, the way it's snapping there, it's telling me exactly where that control should be, and I can let it go, and there's my control. Now I might want to make it a little bit wider here, so again, you can see it's going to snap to that line, and that quickly I have row, column, width all set up on that price field. That price field was an existing field in the table, and over here it exposes the existing fields. As you can see, price is no longer listed here. It's not listed because it's on the form. But if we go up to here, this toolbox has different views up here. These are the fields that are available. As I said before, we wanted to create a new field. If I go to new, my toolbox changes, and I want to add a new currency field. I'm going to just click on it and drag it, and again, I'm going to drop it using the snap pattern. But this time it's coming forward and saying, well, give this field a name. This is going to modify your data schema just like you were in the management side of it. And of course, you need to be a manager and admin in the ACT database for these functions to be exposed and come forward for you. So I could create a new field here. It takes 30 or 40 seconds, so I'm going to just skip out of that. But that's the new button right here. If we go to panels, we have different panels like tabs, group boxes. So if I wanted to add a tab here on my page, I can simply drag a tab on here and do that. And if I want to remove it, I just hit the delete key and it removes that item. If I want to remove any other items, if I just highlight it, hit the delete key, and it'll remove those items. From panels, we have lists. Lists are child tables. So say you have this automobile, but you want to track service calls, specifically to this one automobile, which again is attached to one specific contact record. I actually already have that happening here under this time build one, but I'm going to remove this just to show you how easy it is to create those parent-child, grandchild records. So again, I just went to my list button here, and the list button is showing me a list of all my custom tables and other types of tables that can become child tables. So here I had service calls. Here I had time build. So I'm just going to grab the time build, drag it over here. Now it comes up, it's a little bit too large for the screen, so I'm just going to resize it and drop it there. So I now have a parent-child relationship between automobiles and time build. And if I was to close this down, save changes here, save changes here, and let's go into my Dodge Challenger here. Here's that time build that we just added. So I can see on my Dodge Challenger I have 3 entries, and I go to my Corvette and I only have 1 entry. Now if I wanted to create a new entry on any one of these records, of course you would go to that record, new time build, and here's the time build. So I can say project name, employee, record manager, build date, whatever fields that you want to capture can be put onto the screen. This drop down at the top of this data entry window, remember I said you can have multiple data entry patterns? So I'm looking at this data entry screen this way, but I can actually change this to a data entry form I call time build. And here's my time build screen. So on my time build screen, I actually have a quick selector for the project VIN, which is, the VIN is 987, that's the VIN number. We have build date employee, but over here we have math functions running. So let's just say okay to this, and let's look at a record that has some math functions in it. So here we have a build date of April. We have an employee. We have an estimated hours, actual hours. Hourly rate is $200 an hour. We have billable at 3 hours, and that's $600. So let's just change this to a 5. And we can see the math function recalculated that for us, and we have 1,000. So now if I say okay to that, you can see that we now have $1,000 in that total line item. Okay, this is again the data entry screen for automobiles. If I want to go and change this automobile to a different look, here's a completely different look to that same data that we had. You know, we have the same VIN number, which is our project number. We're holding the same time billing events that we have in here. But on this screen, we're actually seeing activities that are attached to this automobile. Now, these are native activities for the task list and the calendar view. So if I was to add a new activity right here and just say new meeting, here's my edit meeting window. Now with Impact, you can enhance the opportunity window. So this is an Axe native edit meeting window. This is our enhanced one. And even on our enhanced one, we can actually have specialized math functions and special fields you want to add, like, hey, what's the mileage of that event that I just did? What's the billable hours of that event? So I can add this new meeting directly onto this activity. Sorry, this new meeting onto this project. So let me just save and close this down. Okay, we've been working on the custom table that's attached to Chris Huffman's record. Again, we talked about this like being like an activity. These are all the automobiles attached to Chris. Well, what if I wanted to find other automobiles in here? And that's where our navigation bar comes in. So now on the navigation bar, we actually have the automobile entry in here. If your custom table isn't showing up in here by default, you can click on this Arrange button. There's actually a button right here, Arrange, and this allows you to arrange this panel over here. So say I wanted automobiles on the top spot. I can actually just move it up, or I can move it down. Not only can I move it around on the panel, I can change the image. So let's just go and change our image. And let's just see if we have a, say these aren't automobiles, say these are trucks. So let's just find truck images. Truck, okay. All right, so I deal with heavy equipment here. I'll use this image for my automobiles, my trucks. I'll say okay, and as you can see, I now have the truck image there. So again, I was pointing this out. So if I go to my automobile icon in the navigation bar, it brings forward all the automobiles attached to the database. But we only have 2 in here. So let's actually go and look at something like equipment. We have another custom table called equipment. That has 2 entries in it too. Let's go and look at our service calls. Okay, here's our service calls attached. Now service calls are attached to equipment. So on equipment, we actually have manufacturer Hobart. These are Hobart meat deli slicers. And on equipment table, let's go and open up this. We're tracking service calls to each piece of equipment. And service calls are listed here. So this is a list of all the service calls attached to all the equipment that's attached to all the contacts, companies, groups, and or opportunities. So this is where you would come in and manage your day if you were tracking activities or custom activities, service call, billable events, and you say, okay, what's next? What's our next service date item? Well, I have a field called date serviced, and I can just set the order of that to and say, oh, okay, here on this 7/22, I have it scheduled of a service call. If I walk onto here, I can see my ticket numbers. I can see information I want on here. That's all I have on there. If we wanted to, we could actually right-click on this list and say, open the parent. Now remember, this is a service call, so this is going to open up the parent record, which is the equipment piece we have for it. So I'm looking at my equipment. I can see all my previous service calls I made to that equipment, any notes I have about it. So the end users now can say, okay, well, I need to replace a new power switch for this one. Okay, that's an easy one. Bring power switch 1487, whatever the part number is. But I can say, okay, well, have I been here before? I'm going to right-click and say open the parent. And I can say, oh, okay, here's the company information, here's the model number, here's the manufacturer. And again, these are notes regarding that piece of equipment, not just a singular service call, even though we are managing our service calls on a day-to-day event system. Okay. Custom table area over here. We actually have 6 panels here, and you notice we have notes and histories. We know Act version 16 is coming out with a history view, but again, we support Act 2010 or better. So we can have a custom history view. Even though it's not technically a custom table, it's still a custom history view. So I can go into this history view and view everything. I'll say all dates and say yes. And so here's all of my histories inside of the ACT database, and I can double click on any one of them and look at the history events. So that's why history and notes are over here in custom tables, because they're more than custom tables, they're custom views inside of the ACT database. Okay, let me go back to the contact table. One of the things new in version 5 is the ability to place your custom table list almost anywhere on the contact detail screen. In version 4, it would always append itself to the end spots. Everybody knew that. It was kind of a randomish order. It's the way ACT did it in those versions, but we actually in version 5, Impact version 5, we figured out a way to attach it to a specific location. So we have the autos right here, and how you get the custom table to be at a specific position is just create a tab called Autos in the Layout Designer. So I came into here, Tools, Design Layouts, Contacts. And if we go down to here to ACT's native toolbar, let's go to the Properties window, edit our tab collection, and that's it. See, we have a tab called Auto. So all we did was add a tab called Auto, and I won't do it twice. I don't know what ACT would do. We added that tab, and then once that tab was in the list, we said, okay, well, move that tab down to the second position. And by doing that, we get automobiles in here. So let me just close, save changes. Oh, well, this is automobiles. It should have shown up over here. It's still in this first position. If you actually shut down and restarted ACT, that would probably correct itself. Again, this being the ACT beta version 16, we'll look at that. Okay, so that was one area you can actually change where the custom table data resides. Another way, which is we really like it, we call it a component. Just the way all these elements up here are all components that you can add to the screen. You can actually add a component up here. So say this service call was the most important thing I wanted to see every time I walked onto a user's record, and I don't want to have to click on it to go and find out information about my service calls. I'm going to change my data entry screen here at the top. So now when I restart ACT or start up in the first thing in the morning or go to any record, I can see I have the list of service calls right up here. So I don't have to go and hunt them down. I can go in here and say, okay, he has service calls. This is really nice for this is if we wanted to do, let's see, other custom tables, like inside of here, I have a component for activities and a component for, this is the activities at the bottom, and this is opportunities. So right by walking on to Chris Huffman's record, I can see I have $43,000 in opportunities with them, and I've had 27 events or activities with that user. Again, these are just components, and in order to add a component onto the screen, like let's go back to service call demo. Again, this is showing us our service call. I'm going to go to the Tools menu. I'm going to go Design Layout, Contact. And over here, Customize. Okay. With ACT, by default, when we add a plugin, it doesn't show us up here. It's a little annoying. We've asked them to change it. First time, what you have to do is if you right-click on this toolbox over here, and you go to Customize, it shows you a list of things that you can add, customization that you can add. These are all ours, so we're just going to say OK to that. And now we have a custom one. Let me remove this control. So as you can see, we now have custom controls. So I want to say impact custom table, and I want to drag it onto the grid here. It's going to ask us what custom table. So say in this case I want to display automobiles, and now I have the component literally right on the screen where I could drag it around and set up automobiles. So I'm filling up the top of my screen with automobiles. Let's save this and let's consume this. Okay, so as you can see, our automobile tab, which is holding 2, our component at the top is also holding 2. Now the component at the top is modifiable. If we right-click on here, you're going to get the same menu system that you had when you were on a custom tab or in the custom view. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say Customize Columns, and as you can see, we have our whole options window. So we have any option that's available in the list view is also available in the component view. So I don't need created date, I'm going to remove it. Completed, I'm going to remove. I can do a lot of stuff on here, and I'm just going to say save. And there it goes. I have a new component layout with the fields I want. Over here on this little bump out, you're going to see 3 little icons. Oh, I hit double clicked on it. You're going to see 3 little icons. This component actually can be changed between list view, right? It can be changed by a chart, or it can be changed into a pivot table. Now, with 1 or 2 records, pivot tables don't really show their full nature here. Let's go back to this impact demo. Remember, we had a few records in here. So again, these are the custom components. This is our meetings. We have 27 meetings in here. Well, that's nice to know, but I want to see, are these old meetings? Are these new meetings? I'm going to turn this into a chart. So I've taken that same information and I've taken it to year. I've broken it down by year. So I see I have 19 appointments in the year 2013, and I've had 8 old ones. This is a chart. I can come into the chart and say, hey, I want to view everything by month. Let's see how month by month has been going. So I can see, oh, 1 or 2 calls an average a month. Busy month, maybe they had a cutover, maybe we did a lot of work for them, and then we're back to 2 or 1 calls. So a component that can be dragged right onto the screen that can hold custom table information not only gives you instantaneous information, not having to hunt down the tab system, but also can give you that information in different views. This is a pivot table. I'm sorry, this is the activities on the bottom, and that's the opportunities on the top. Okay, I'm just going to take a break here to see if there's any questions. I know I've talked about a half hour here. I had a couple of questions come through while I was doing, which was great, and I think I did hit most of those questions as I went through. Somebody asking about version 16 having a history table. A history view. I think that's public knowledge. It's in beta now. The history view will be on the ACT version 16, yes. They have YouTube videos about it. So if you go to YouTube and hunt down to YouTube, look up for ACT v16 or ACT history, something like that, I think you'll find their YouTube videos out there. Oh, the second part of that question, can I query down any specific criteria? No, we haven't really reviewed it that much. We're basically reviewing to make sure our add-ons work inside of ACT version 16. For their functionality, I haven't reviewed it, but the feedback I've gotten from our beta sites is that we have more functionality than ACT has. So as you know, our kind of history view or any one of our views, we have a whole filtering mechanism up here that you can add filter conditions for anything. So I could say I want the record manager contains Chris Hoffman. Well, these are all Chris Hoffman's records. So let me just turn on all these. So what you're seeing me doing here by sorting, grouping, and organizing information by types, or let's just go by type here and say type, things like this. So I can actually take this history table and really break it apart into different sections and then filter it and add filters. Choose a field. I'll say the type is any of, and I want to see the only my calls and things like this. So if I collapse all of me now, so I just that quickly filter this down to record managers, Chris Hoffman, and any of calls, contacts completed. I've sorted, organized, and grouped it. I can come along and edit this list, and I can say, show me the counts of those. So I have 150 records. Let me just create it, move it over here. I have 150 records, 88 completed, 28. They definitely will not break it down as far as we do, but they do have some basic filtering mechanisms on their history views. Okay. Question about importing and exporting custom tables. Yes, you can do that. What's nice about that feature is when you're designing your custom table, you may not want to design it on your production database. So what we suggest you do is take a copy of your production database, do a backup, then restore it on your local PC. Now, when you're on your local PC, you can go in there and kind of be aggressive, add new tables to it, do things like this, where you're not worried about downtime with people online and having everybody log off so you add a field. You may spend a week and design these custom tables and say, okay, this is what we want to do. Let's roll this out. But again, you have it on a local copy of the database. Well, instead of having to recreate everything, we have an import-export capability. So if you go to Define Custom Tables in our menu, here's an import and export. So really export, what you're doing is you're creating a template. The same way we created a template, I showed you can create custom tables based on templates. Well, I want to create a template here, and it shows you what table, from my equipment and my service calls. So I'm just going to create that custom template, and I'll call it, put it in my documents, called my template. So I now have all the custom tables, schema, structure, data files, column layouts, math functions, Word templates, all into one nice little zip file on my hard drive. And so you would just reverse the process. Friday night, you'd have everybody log out of the system, and you'd say, okay, I'm going to go now import my template. And you would just reverse this process and says, import my template. So where's my template? Oh, I thought I put it into my documents. Well, you got the idea. I have no idea where I end up putting this, because it's just a zip file. Okay, I didn't pay attention there. Well, it would come forward with that zip file, and it would show you those two custom tables in the template, and you would just import it. So that's how you would export and import into in between databases. Okay, a question specifically about Tasklist Plus resources. I'm not sure of that answer. We can take that one offline, and I can answer that for you offline afterwards, because I'm well above my half hour here, and I just wanted to see if anybody else has any other questions regarding custom tables. Okay, just to recap then, custom tables are secondary tables in the ACT database. It's a very simple process for installing them. When you install Impact Suite for the first time, you go to your Tools menu, Impact Suite, and remember, go to your templates. Once you've designed or selected a template, just click down here, install selected templates, and it will take the minute to update your database schema and install their templates. If that if that custom table name exists, it won't override it. You can re-import it, and it's going to say, oh, automobiles already exist. It won't change it, modify it, or alter it if it's already there. It doesn't override it. So again, take the ActDemo 13 database or ActDemo 12 database, install a couple of custom tables, and play around with the interface. Any questions that you have, you can always email them to us at support@durkincomputing.com. And we do have an online help section under our website. We are starting to post these webinars. As you can kind of tell with my hemming and hawing, I'm kind of new to this. But as the series goes on, we are going to record these and post them up there. Not in this detail with all this chatter going on. There'll be a much slimmer version. They'll be underneath the video tab menu on our durkincomputing.com website. Okay, again, I want to thank everybody for attending, and have a great Friday. Thanks a lot.